Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. Gas station attendant shot to dead in Portmore. A female pump attendant was shot to death at the Petcom gas station near the intersection of Passage Fort Drive and Municipal Boulevard in Portmore, St. Catherine on Tuesday afternoon. Head of the St. Catherine South Police Division Senior Superintendent Christopher Phillips said there were no further details. The woman was reportedly attacked by men riding a motorcycle. 3 in custody following killing of man along Bull Point Main Road. 3 people have been taken into custody in relation to the killing of a man along the Bull Point Main Road in Ochoa, St. Anne on Saturday evening. Dead is 25-year-old Roshane Hudson, otherwise called brother, of Guysville St. Mary and Mansfield St. Anne. Acting head of St. Anne Police Division Superintendent David White said the persons were picked up during an intensive operation in the area between 1 and 4 p.m. on Tuesday.
Would have picked up some persons that we believe would have interest to us in our investigation, and would have given warning. A number of summons were served on some of the proprietors inside that space. What we have done is intensify our investigation from the recent murder that occurred there on Saturday. What we are now finding out that there are a number of criminal elements that are in Little Dunsville running it. It's an organized criminal network coming out at Fairtown, and we intensified those investigations. We would have suspected that there's no doubt there'll be reprisal, and we want to make sure that the citizens who use that beach are safe. Well, as usual, Fairtown was always one of our crime-infested area, one of the hotspots for St. Anne, and we usually have police present in that space. What the fear is that if you can do a murder in the area, in Ocho right in the tourism belt, then the possibility exists if you're bold enough to do that, they may want to take revenge for the man that was killed. Because what we know, finding out, is that it's the interpersonal or within the organization that they are having infighting.
Manchester teacher charged with rape, grievous sexual assault and obscene publication. A Manchester teacher has been charged with rape, grievous sexual assault and obscene publication following alleged incidents that occurred between December 2021 and June this year. Charged is 29-year-old Miguel Griffiths, otherwise called Spoon, of Knockpatrick District, Manchester. Detectives assigned to the Center of the Investigation of Sexual Offences and Child Abuse SOCA made the arrest. Reports are that Griffith sent photographs and videos of his genitals to the 11-year-old girl. He later met with the child in Newport District, Manchester, where it is alleged that he sexually assaulted and raped her. A report was made to the police and an investigation was launched. Griffith was pointed out to the police and charged. His court date is being finalized. Floodwaters in Lucy, Hanover has receded. The National Works Agency NWA says floodwaters in Lucy, Hanover have receded. The town was flooded on August 29 following heavy rainfall. Speaking with reporters, Community Relations Officer for the NWA's Western Regional, General Ricketts, said most of the water have receded after about 8 p.m.
On Monday, we had quite a bit of flooding in Lucy. What happened? The Riley River breached its banks and resulted in flooding of the roadway leading from Keep Left into Lucy. So it was quite a bit of inundation there, but by 8 o'clock last night, we saw much of that water receding and motorists were able to pass through freely. What we are now going to do is to have our engineers reevaluate the situation. It is a recurring problem, but what we noticed is that in the last few flood events, it is really just a situation of the channel not being able to manage the sheer volume of water that came down from the rainfall in the area. So the river breaches bank. So what we are now going to do is to have our engineers reassess the situation and to see the best long-term solution for the area.
$500,000 reward for information on killing of homeless man in Kingston. Minister of Local Government Desmond McKenzie is offering a reward of $500,000 for information that can help to the arrest of those responsible for the killing of a homeless man in Kingston on August 29. Dead is Daniel Johnson, Reports are that around 1 a.m., lawmen found Mr. Johnson on fire in the Hero Circle area. He was taken to hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. In a statement, Mr. Mackenzie condemned the killing. He described the act as savage, noting the suffering that Mr. Johnson would have endured. The minister said Mr. Johnson was well known to Kingston and St. Andrew Poor Relief Department, which regularly supported him by providing food, and at times he stayed at the night shelter on Church Street. Mr. Mackenzie called on all citizens to condemn the act and help the police with information where possible, noting that no civilized society can allow such an act to go unpunished. Mr. Mackenzie said he is hopeful that the reward will result in the arrest of those responsible. He is also urging members of the homeless population to utilize the facilities provided by the government. Prime Minister says land has been identified for the construction of a proper prison structure. Land has been identified for the construction of what has been deemed a proper prison in Jamaica. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the disclosure while responding to questions at a Jamaica Diaspora Town Hall meeting in Trinidad. He noted that the government has been placing focus on building specialized, high-security prisons in the country.
Well, we didn't launch an initiative to build more prisons. I mean, to be frank with you, I think any society would want to build less prisons. Okay. But we do need to upgrade our prisons. So we are now focusing on building specialized prisons, high-security prisons, right. And we have identified land to build out a proper prison structure for Jamaica. So that is in the process of being developed, but I don't think we have announced it. So you have gotten me to say some things that are, but we haven't announced it yet.
Jamaica Environment Trust concerned about lack of updates from Nepal following recent recovery fish killed. The Jamaica Environment Trust (JET) has expressed concern about the lack of updates from the National Environment and Planning Agency Nepal following the toxic discharge of waste into the recovery on July 30. Waste from the Windalco's effluent holding pond in Newarton, St. Catherine flowed into the recovery, elevating the temperature and pH of the river, affecting water quality, killing fish and other organisms, and compromising the livelihoods and food sources of residents. The spill also resulted in the disruption of water supply to parts of Spanish Town and other communities, as well as the supply of irrigation water to farmers. Speaking in an interview with reporters, JET's Chief Executive Officer Dr. Teresa Rodriguez Moody noted that while NEPA issued a statement on August 5th, which outlined their intended actions, there has been no formal update to the country since.
The Jamaica Environment Trust is concerned that since the discharge from Windalco's effluent holding pond on July 30, which resulted in a fish kill in the Rio Cobre, we have really not heard much back from the National Environment and Planning Agency. And the public has a lot of questions. We know that there was supposed to have been a meeting where the company could appeal the decision. Whether or not that meeting was held, what were the terms agreed, we still have not been informed. The public doesn't know. There really needs to be greater transparency on this issue. Will it be the taxpayers who have to pay for the actions of Windalco? Those are some questions that really need to be answered. So we really are looking for greater transparency, regular updates. For example, putting the notice of intention to suspend on the NEPA's permit. The lack of transparency is really only serving to exacerbate this lack of trust that community members have in the regulators, considering that this problem is long-standing in nature.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says issue of violence needs to be treated as public health crisis. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the issue of violence in Jamaica needs to be treated as a public health crisis. Mr. Holness, who was speaking at a Diaspora Town Hall meeting in Trinidad last evening, August 29, noted that violence is one of the leading causes of death in Jamaica and by extension the wider Caribbean. According to the Jamaica Constabulary Force, more than 968 people have been murdered in the country so far this year. Mr. Holness said to effectively address the issue of violence, it must be looked at from a public health point of view.
In Jamaica, you have a higher chance of being murdered than by being hit by a car. This did not happen overnight. I mean, it's been a creeping thing, but we haven't dealt with it from an epidemiological point of view. We haven't treated it in the way that it needs to be treated, which is it is a public health crisis. So we do have strategies to deal with violence. We are improving our national security capabilities, improving the police, and so forth. And again, those will take time. But the element which we have not really addressed is this use of violence. We have put in place a National Commission for the Prevention of Violence. And that commission is doing several things, one of which is to examine all the disparate programs that we have on violence prevention, to bring them together in a cohesive and coordinated way. And secondly, to give us a new direction, a new perspective, new strategies on how to treat with violence. It will mean that we're going to have to spend more resources on social work, on the psychiatrists and the psychologists, particularly for young people. It means that we have to move one step further from treating with the perpetrator of crime and violence to also paying attention to the trauma of victims. And that might mean a whole new set of legislation, a whole new set of resources.
Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification